everyone, and welcome to the My Friends Don't Read Book Club with Mel. Today we aren't going to do a book review, but we're going to talk about how to fall in love with reading as an adult. There are a lot of people that started reading as kids and just never stopped, and I am so envious of those people, but I'm actually not one of them. So I started my reading journey when I was a kid, and I did used to read a lot, but then through university I kind of just got put off. I don't know if it was all of the required textbooks readings or just that I didn't really have time, but I slowly became one of those adults that scrolls on my phone and watches movies as my long form content. But I remember about halfway through last year, one of my friends who was an avid reader, she used to tell me that on a Saturday night she would sit at home and read her fantasy book with a bottle of salve. And I thought, fuck yeah, go you. That sounds amazing, but I don't read, and the majority of the rest of my friends don't read either, so I don't even know where I would start. I managed to end up finding my way back to reading and finding that joy in it, but I don't think it was a particularly easy task, and it was something that I had to keep persevering at until I had that skill back. And nowadays I absolutely love reading. I have so many books on my waiting to read list, and I'm starting this channel now to even review some of them. So it's definitely something that I recommend other people get into. So I'm going to give some tips on how to get back into the love of reading. So number one is think of it as a self-care activity. Reading is good for us. Continuing to read the same story for multiple days and having our brains stick with that theme and that pattern and wait longer to get to the climax of the story is really, really helpful for your brain health, especially nowadays when all we do is scroll and get those dopamine hits from 5-second reels. It is no wonder that people find it hard to go back to reading books. But because it is a self-care thing, you need to put that perseverance into it in knowing that you're doing something good for yourself. You know, when you start running and you want to do something good for yourself, you want to get fit and healthy, you don't expect to immediately run on a 15k run, come back and feel no pain and get that runner's high. It's kind of the same with reading. You are not going to pick up a book and instantly be drawn into the book and be able to read the whole thing without any boredom or any teething pains. It's a skill, and it's a skill that you haven't used in a while. Be prepared to read a couple of books before you feel confident in your reading ability and you feel the ability to get completely sucked into a book without having your attention go elsewhere. That's just a normal part of building any skill. When I started reading again a lot last year, I would say it probably took me about 2 or 3 books. One of them was probably because I don't think that will be a genre that I enjoy reading, and the other 2 were just moving so slow that I found it really hard to connect. But on that 4th or 5th book, I was so invested and I was just turning those pages, so excited to see what happened next, and I kind of reset my brain to be able to wait for the ending of the story in that way. Make reading a people activity, even if you're an introvert. So this doesn't have to mean that you have friends already into reading by the name of this channel, although it is where I personally started. So that one friend that I had that was into reading, I asked her if she had any suggestions about books that she was wanting to read coming up. She ended up recommending The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and we read this together, and we had a little tea party afterwards, themed for the book, and we were able to talk about the book and our interpretations of what happened and how good we thought it was. Not everyone has that, and that is absolutely fine. That is what this channel is for. So reading doesn't have to be something that you do with someone sat side by side. It can still be a people activity if you're just hearing the feedback of others on that book as well. So personally, how I absolutely love to read a book, I like to go in completely blind, so I don't know what that book is about, and I've never heard reviews on it. Maybe it has been recommended to me by someone, maybe I've looked at Reddit or TikTok or somewhere that suggested the book, and I will read the book and form my own opinions on it. And after that, I'll listen to a podcast or a YouTube video of other people's ideas on the book and what they thought of it. I think it's really similar to if you scroll on Instagram and you find a funny or thought-provoking reel and you go to the comments. I am someone who goes to the comments. I want to know what other people are saying about it. I want to know if my opinions on a whole are right or wrong to others. So by reading a book blind and then having my own opinions and then being able to compare that to what other people, either like I do on podcasts or a YouTube channel, but also just reading opinions on Reddit or completed reviews with spoilers after you've read the book. That really helps to make it a people activity, and it makes you feel like you've found a group of people that are interested in the same thing. And even if you don't have those friends right next to you for the discussions, it's still really helpful and motivation for wanting to keep on reading, to know that there's a whole group of people just like you. Listen to book reading content, but not book snob content. Like with any hobby, there are going to be people out there that have been doing it for a very long time, and they've gotten so engrossed in it that they've become a little bit elitist. There are people that look down on certain genres, look down on how fast you read, look down in the type of authors that you're interested in. And as a first-time reader, honestly, those opinions are just so detrimental. Like with running, you wouldn't expect to run 15k straight away. It will be the same with getting into reading. You should look for things that interest you, things that are fun and light, and if you like something a bit more literary heavy, that's great, and that means that you've found a good genre for you. But just because one person enjoys reading a certain type of thing or thinks reading should be done in a certain way doesn't mean you have to abide by their opinions. Celebrate your reading milestones. What I did when I first started reading was I would read the majority of the book, and then for the last 2 chapters I would go out to a cafe and order myself a special drink, a matcha or something that I don't usually get, and sit there and take that time to read for myself. And it was like a treat and a reward at the end of getting through all the earlier chapters, especially if some were a little bit slower paced. It doesn't really matter if you do something big or if you do something small, like having a Snickers bar when you finish a chapter, but as long as you are acknowledging to yourself that you have done something that was hard and was good for you. Have a list of books that you want to read and try different media. I actually started getting into books quite heavily via audiobooks. It was easier for me because I like to multitask. I like to be in the dishes while I am listening to it, but there are definitely some bad audiobooks out there. Nowadays, I love physical books. I love actually turning the pages and having it almost as a trophy at the end of the read. I think at some point that will probably change because I'm already filling up one bookshelf. I can see how this will be a problem when people read a plethora of books. Where do you actually put them? But that's when you can utilize things such as libraries to borrow books and read it and then buy the trophy if you actually enjoyed the book. Or you can get back into audiobooks or things like getting a Kindle and reading on your device. For me, I really don't like reading on a device, even a Kindle, and I know a lot of people that love their Kindles. I do think it's great how many books you can access, but personally that's something that I just haven't found I'm able to stick to when I'm reading on a device. But everyone's different, so you have to try a few different forms of media. And like I said with audiobooks, that is the other thing, is that if you are listening to a book rather than reading a book, you have a whole new aspect of not just how the book is written, but also how it's performed. A book that I've read recently, Not Quite Dead Yet, I enjoyed. I will do a review on it a little bit later, but when I read a lot of the reviews after reading that book, so many of them were bad reviews. And when I actually read what they were saying in their review, most of them were complaining about the narrator's voice. So a lot of the reviews were actually completely skewed between people who had actually physically read that book and people who had listened to it just because of that performance aspect. So try a few different forms of media, and if you are getting into a book and you like the story but you're just getting bored, maybe switch to a different form of media. You can get free trials on Audible, you can get free trials on Kindle, you can rent books from your library for free, so it's not actually that high cost to just try a different way of absorbing that story. And my last one is to say that you are a book reader. Like I said in the very start of this video, I used to say all of the time, I don't read. Just as a blanket statement about myself, I don't read. Saying that almost did completely stop me from just picking up the occasional book, because it was so ingrained in my personality that that wasn't something that I did. And then when you do read your first book, it's hard to start saying I am a reader or I'm into books when you're still so new at it and you haven't developed that skill. You almost don't feel confident in saying that. But it is something that helps with motivation hugely to make something a part of your personality. But nowadays I can say I am a book reader and I love reading books. It's different for everyone. It doesn't have to be with a Sav on a Saturday night. But you can say that you're a book reader even if you're just a casual person getting into reading books. It's absolutely fine. No one is going to quiz you if you say that you're a book reader, and if they do, those are those book snob people that we don't really want to be talking to anyway. We aren't in primary school. We don't need to pretend that we are too cool to read or do anything to go out of our way to not look nerdy. Reading is cool, reading is fun, reading is good for you. Just say you're a book reader. And with that, that is the end of my first YouTube video. So I'm going to be doing book reviews on books that I have read. I will first start them off by going over a summary of the book and my recommendation whether you should read them or not before I get into spoiler category, and that's something that you can come back to after you've read that book. And I'm also going to be making videos here and there about things that I'm interested in and things people would get from a one-on-one conversation if they had friends that were interested in reading or reading the same things as them. This channel is for anyone that wants to get more into reading, and if you have any book suggestions or topics that you would love to be covered, please feel free to drop them below.